as I engaged Father's heart regarding all of this week in Christ consciousness, he kept bringing back to my attention our mind, our will, and our emotions. Our mind, our will, and our emotions. Those are the places, that's the place that you and I transform everything. It's through our mind, our will, and our emotions. And we've been taught that the soul, mind, will, and emotions, is the bad one, the bad part of ourself, the one thing that's a challenge to our life in Christ, to a life of fullness, to the life of Christ consciousness. But can I just declare that is not true? Because if I am Christ in the earth, then what is resurrection reality? How does it apply? And why do we feel that we fall back into frameworks of separation? I'm dealing with myself, dealing with my mind, will, and emotions. Do I have the mind of Christ or not? Do I have the mind of Christ or not? Do I have his mind, his will, and his emotions? Is that part of resurrection realities? And if it is, why do I choose not to believe it? Why do I still struggle with all of the things we've been taught that I need to deal with my junk before something can happen? Didn't Christ already do that in the "it is finished"? So truly, the manifestation of resurrection realities are fully, completely mine. If I do have the mind of Christ, then does the mind, will, and emotions of Christ live from me? Do his mind, will, and emotions live from me? If they do, how can I choose to see anything in any other way other than what the divine one is seeing, feeling, choosing, and thinking? Let me say that again. If Christ's mind, will, and emotions live in and from me, if they are mine, his mind, will, and emotions are my framework, the framework I physically, body, soul, and spirit, are crafted and made from, then how can I choose, keyword, to see anything other than what the divine one is seeing, feeling, choosing, and thinking, and thus respond to that?
Wow.
So let's look specifically about man's mind, about man's will, about his emotions in context of Christ consciousness reality. Because y'all, resurrection realities is Christ consciousness reality. Christ was never, all caps, bolded, highlighted, underlined, never concerned. Never spoke ill of himself, his mind, his will, his emotions. Never, ever, not one time. His every word and action spoke and conducted himself from I am. And y'all, all that was before resurrection. So then what? I mean, that has got to blow your mind. If all of that I just said was all before he was even resurrected, how much greater then do you and I live from resurrection realities? Christ himself constantly spoke and conducted himself from the position, I and my Father are one. That's all he knew. That's all he expressed. That's all he spoke. That was the life from which he lived from. Philippians 2, 5 through 11 reads like this. Let this mind be in you. Which mind? What mind? Whose mind? Father's, the divine one. Let this mind be in you. Pardon me, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, put your name there, please. Who, put your name there, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Hold on just a second, pause. Made in the form of a servant. Okay, I don't even know how to say this, and I may not be able to articulate it fully. But when I stumbled across that, I was struck, paused right there. Christ made in the form of a servant. Who was he a servant to? Do you realize that even though, yes, Christ in the form and likeness of a man was on the earth to be the example to humanity so we could see in natural form what it looked like to be a son, to function like God in the earth, in creation. He did do that so we could see something tangibly. So man could see something tangibly, okay? And that is true. But who was Christ a servant to? It wasn't you and me. It wasn't humanity. Do you realize that his submission of his life was to his Father, not to you and not to man? Because Father was his eyes were only on him. And because his heart position was positioned in and of and to his Father, that was where the submission was directed towards. The expression of that submission was what man got to benefit from. But you and I are not the ones he was servant toward. It was to Father. It was to Father because of that love relationship of oneness. That was what his whole focus, his whole energy, his whole self was toward. And we got to benefit from the expression of it.